Hi there, welcome back to another episode where we tackle one of the most common and misunderstood questions in transfer pricing analysis. When you perform a benchmarking study, should you use the company's official NACE or industry code as listed in its registration documents? Or should you base your search on the actual nature of the specific transaction? And why does it matter? Let me tell you, it matters a lot, because getting this right can make or break your benchmarking. So, how does it usually happen? In practice, many people simply take the company's registered NACE or business activity code, type it into the database, and call it a day. For example, a company is registered under management consulting or manufacturer of auto parts, and they just use that code. Sounds reasonable? Right. Unfortunately, not really. Why? Because in transfer pricing, you are not comparing the whole company to others. You are comparing a specific transaction between related parties, and that's what your benchmark needs to reflect. The OECD guidelines make this very clear. They state that comparability should be assessed with respect to the economically relevant characteristics of the controlled transaction. So, what does it mean? It means what really matters are things like the functions performed in the transaction, the assets used, the risk assumed, and the nature of the service or product being delivered. Not what the company does in general on paper. Let me give you an example. A company is registered as a management consultancy, but in its transaction with its parent company in Germany, it's actually providing call center services. Who should you compare it to? Other consulting firms? Of course not. You should compare it to call centers because that's what the transaction actually is. Another example, a company manufactures auto parts, but in its controlled transaction, it only provides logistics services to an affiliate. Should you benchmark it against a manufacturers? No, you should benchmark it against the logistic providers. And these kind of examples happen all the time. So what's the best way to approach this? Here's the simple three-step process. Step 1. Describe the transaction in detail. What exactly is being provided? What function does the company perform? What risk does it take? Step 2. Find NACE or industry codes that best reflect that specific activity, not the company's overall operations, just the transaction. Step 3. Keep in mind that the company's registered code can be a starting point, but it's only a hint, not the final answer. Just because a company is registered as a manufacturer doesn't mean it acts as manufacturer in every transaction. So where does this approach come from? It's just nice to have? Not at all. This approach comes directly from the OECD guidelines, from the UN transfer pricing manual, from national regulations, and even from the methodology notes of the databases like Orbis or Amadeus. All of these emphasize the same thing. Choose your industry codes based on the transaction, not the company. Why is that so important? If you choose the wrong code, you'll end up with wrong comparables, and that makes your analysis much weaker and more vulnerable in an audit. But if you choose the right code, your documentation becomes much stronger and much more defensible. And here's one more tip. Don't be afraid to use more than one code if the transaction is complex or multiple component. That's perfectly fine, and it shows that you have really thought about what you are comparing. So, to sum up, when you perform a benchmark, the NACE or industry code should reflect the transaction's nature, not just the company's registered activity. This way, your analysis will be robust and aligned with both OECD guidelines and a good practice. And finally, if you would like, I can prepare an analysis template for you with the transaction description and matching industry codes. Let me know in the comments if that sounds useful, and I'll be happy to help. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next episode.